The studios of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report in Northwest Pennsylvania. I'm Doug Hagmann. This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Tuesday, May 26, 2015. Again, I'm Doug Hagmann at the helm with fellow investigator, researcher, and most importantly, my son, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, what we like to call America's premier father-son investigative reporting team. Our job is to bring you the news that propels the headlines, the news that is being twisted and shaped and convoluted and hidden amid a funhouse of smoke and mirrors and the carnival that we call the corporate media. And as we like to say, we do the headline and news triage so you don't have to. And we want to just give a big thank you to all of the listeners out there, both new and veteran listeners. Thanks for checking in with us. Thank you for your many letters and cards and emails. Read every one in the process of responding to many. And just want to say thank you so much for the kindness to which you extend, the suggestions that you make, the research. My goodness, the research that you, the listeners, have done and are doing, and just incredible work. I am so I'm so impressed. We're so impressed, Joe and I are, of the caliber of people that we hear from, and that's you. Just thank you so much. For new listeners, we broadcast live every Monday through Friday from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Our home base on the Internet is hagmannandhagmann.com, and we're simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There, you can catch us at the hagmannandhagmannreport.com. Now, at our home base, hagmannandhagmann.com, you can access us live. You have to go on the right-hand side there and click on the little box. You'll see it. You can access us live, as well as all of our past shows, our social networking sites, and most importantly, our investigative reports. And we are, and I say this often, but I do mean this, we are pulling in some data. Believe it or not, folks, we have about 30 gigabytes of data that we are pulling off of previous hard drives. And we had looked over, we had done some research and looked over some research that we had done back in the early 2000s, 02, 03, 04, 05, in that time period. And found some things that have vanished from the Internet. So we're going to be integrating that into our website at hagmannandhagmann.com. It's a pretty big task. And we do have some outstanding emails that we have to respond to. I want to let you know if you send an email in response to our requests, we will be getting in touch with you here shortly. At any rate, tonight we're going to be piercing the fog of disinformation, misinformation, misdirection, helping you see what's important but aren't meant to see. Joe, what a time in which we live. I just marvel at the times, because we're living in such critically important times, and yet I was in my vehicle for an extended period today. Had to get some things done, and I was listening to Herman Cain and Glenn Beck and others live, or by time delay, whatever, shortly. But I mean current. And I really believe we had a caller yesterday call our show a hybrid show. Joe, I believe that that's exactly what it is. And I think that component, the Christian component to this show, the biblical component to the show, is so extremely vital. What do you think?
Of course. It is the most important part of the show. It is what is missing from every other show out there.
It contextualizes things, doesn't it?
In the mainstream and many alternative shows.
Yeah.
And it is, as I said, the most important issue, because first and foremost, we have the Lord and His will and the purpose of why we're here and what we're to do. And then we have the world, which is we are to live in the world but not be of the world. So to understand that much alone when looking at current events and the perspective that we see them in. It's important to understand that we have a greater hope. We have we don't have to have a fearful attitude. We don't have to have a doom and gloom attitude. Even though we see that, there is doom and unrest and uncertainty and chaos all around us, we have the Lord who died for our salvation so we can be saved, and we have Him to thank and heaven to look forward to. Otherwise, what's the point of all this?
Exactly. What's the point of all this? And you know what, folks? Have you ever asked yourself, and this might even sound childish or childlike, but have you ever asked yourself, what are we doing here? What's our purpose here? Why are we alive? Some of the most basic philosophical questions. And, there's a purpose that we all serve, or we are to serve. And how many people are walking around today not knowing what their purpose is, or not even entertaining that question? It's the majority of people, and I think that's just amazing to me. So tonight,
not only that,
go ahead.
They will marginalize it, make fun of, look at you anymore like you're a conspiracy theorist if you believe in Jesus, or if He is the reason that you act or believe a certain way. You are looked upon as an extremist or as a Looney Tune.
Right. And see, there is a war right now, a hot war that is being waged against Christians, and that served, to me, this hot war against Christianity, against Christians, strikes at the very heart of the war that we are going to see unfold against free speech. All of the internet little things that are taking place, with little tweaks and changes that will occur on the internet, I do believe, at the very core of everything is the war against Christians. Now, I'm not talking about your prosperity Christians or the people in the pews, but I'm talking about the true Christians, the remnant of which our audience is part. You're part of the remnant, and I'll say this: like it or not, you're part of it. And I've had the opportunity to speak with, over the last week or so, a number of people, from police officers to truck drivers to military personnel to ministers. I'm just off the top of my head here, but I've also spoken to people who are alone in wheelchairs, or otherwise impaired, physically impaired, or have problems where they don't drive and they can't get around, and they're in fact, I spoke to one lady, just a tremendous woman, living in Queens, New York, in a walk-up brownstone walk-up home in Queens, and she's describing to me how she feels so isolated in how she feels. My goodness, she said, I can't prepare. I don't have any preps. I don't have, I'm not prepared for what is coming. And we had a good conversation, but in the end, she realized that, she is prepared. In fact, more prepared. I would assert more prepared than the average person that has a full range of motion of all extremities, full mobility, and the room, the space, however, what they don't have is that attention or that knowledge of what is coming. So, but even regardless of your station in life, we are all in this together, and this is so important to me, and it's been weighing so heavily on my heart as we've been, we have been doing a lot to finalize, and I'm emphasizing the word finalize, putting the final touches on our studios and office complex. We are the people who are doing the work, with the exception of the tech stuff. I mean, we clean the toilets, we clean the carpets, we clean the walls, we we dust the wires. We do all of that. And again, aside from the tech stuff. So you have time to think, and you have time to put things in perspective. And the perspective that I'm getting right now is, and I do believe that we will see this in the near term, that we're going to see a reset or things that will happen incrementally, concurrently. Things are going to happen that are going to make people, are going to shock people for the most part. They're going to be shocked, and economically, I mean, in just about every venue you can think of. And the more that I've listened to and had dialogue with Jonathan Kahn and other people of that caliber, I realize that time is short. And Steve Quayle, of course, time is short. Nathan Leal, time is short. And we have that responsibility to bring out the most important parts. I mean, we have to start really like a laser with precision, hitting the important things. Now, sometimes a laser, sometimes we have to look at the macro image as opposed to the laser-like precise image. We have to take a few steps back and look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture here right now that we're seeing in the final 16 months or however long the renegade in chief, the usurper in the White House, sorry about that, is there, and all of the people around him in this Congress as well, the more damage they will inflict upon our society. And people listening to us in the UK and in Europe and other countries, you're going to be affected by this as well. Perhaps not as directly, but nonetheless you will be affected by this, what's coming. So we've got some things to really get into, and we've had the ability to sit down and be studious and do our research, as well as of course doing sometimes taking some time out, and as you're cleaning a toilet, or as you're cleaning a sink, or sweeping the carpet, you have the time to kind of assess, to take a step back and to kind of let things. There's a soak time that's required, mental soak time, I'll call it, and that's important for all of us to really to have. And you can do it at your home, or as you're working, as you're driving your truck across the country. You can do it as well. But so important stuff to get into. I wanted to I asked Joe right before the program started if I could just kind of touch on something that's weighing heavily on my mind, and it has to do with the war against Christians and where we stand today with this. Now, the second hour, Stan Deyo, of course, will come on. And you know what, Joe? We probably should take care of some housekeeping and let people know the schedule for the rest of the week as we have it right now, that we're going to be doing some things. Well, personally, me, Doug Hagmann, and Steve Quayle, we're going to be joining John B. Wells, J.B. Wells, on Thursday, all 3 hours of his program.
When will that air?
Thursday, I believe. I mean, it's only delayed. It could very well be live, but I don't. You know what? I'm not exactly certain. I do believe it'll air Thursday. But nonetheless, it's Steve Quayle, Doug Hagmann, and J.B. Wells talking about certain things. And then I'm going to be joining Dave Hodges this coming Sunday at his new time, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern.
And don't forget, we will be on...
You and I?
Sheila Zielinski.
Yep.
On Friday.
On Friday. Sheila Zielinski, great lady, great show. Going to be, and people, listeners may recall that she was doing the weekend report with us for up until we retold things at the end of the last year, and then she, of course, she had went out on her own with her show, gangbusters, going great. Fantastic show he's got. So we're very honored to be asked to be on her show as well. That's Friday, right, Joe? You and me?
Mm-hmm.
Friday? Okay. And Thursday night, in addition to the 3 hours that Steve and I with John Wells, Thursday night, Steve Quayle and John Price are going to be talking about America as Babylon. And very important topic, very important show Thursday night. So that's some housekeeping there. And Joe's got some other things that he's working on, other guests, and of course we've listened to those who have sent emails in, and we're working on a few things into next week for very pertinent, very important guests. But so it's going to be, it's really, and you're going to see a lot of things evolve. I mean, I really believe that at this point we've got to take the gloves off. We are going to be going out and being part of the change. In fact, Joe, how would you describe it? I mean, you know, it's one thing to sit behind a microphone, but it's another thing to sit behind a microphone after you've done things, okay? Whether it be investigations or maybe even a little bit proactive in things. So, you know, Coach Dave Dobmeyer, Salt and Light Brigade, and others, we're going to be doing some things. And, you know, praise God, we've been given such a blessed opportunity through your support to have equipment to go out and to document certain things that need documented. I'm not going to get into it right now. This weekend, pay very close attention to this weekend if you don't mind, and we'll send some things out, notifications out via our social networking sites. But we're going to be releasing some pictures of the final product of our studios and of our offices, and you know, just so proud of what we've been able to accomplish through your assistance. I mean, this is something that you've built. You, the listener, you, the people who've really supported us, and we just thank you so much for that. But so we want to give you a glimpse inside our new operational facilities, and you know, we've got the ability to plug into certain databases, investigative. And we've always had the ability as investigators to plug into databases, but we've expanded that as well. Now, I'm not going to get too far into that, but I'll just say this. The research tools that we have available to us are second to none. I mean, they're top of the line, I believe. And that will provide us with additional or enhanced abilities to bring you reliable, authenticated information in real time. So I know that sounds rather cryptic, but you'll see it in action here coming soon. But before we get into tonight's program, just a few minutes here. You know, I mentioned about the war against Christianity, and as investigators, both Joe and I have found that answers. A lot of people rely on the internet to find answers about things. And have you noticed, folks, the war against Christians and the war against Christianity as it is right now, most people use the internet as the source of information to compare, for example, and you'll see this often. America, to compare America with pre-war Nazi Germany. But the information that they're using is from the internet or has evolved or has been revised. The reason I'm mentioning this is because what we've been doing and what we've done and what we have the ability to do now, even from our offices, is to is to look at references, books, for example, that were written before the Second World War. Some before the Second World War ended, some before the Second World War even began. Think about this. The authors of such books, especially before the Second World War ended or began, they didn't have a clue how history would unfold. They did not know that the world, for example, would be plunged into global war. They didn't know that 6 million Jews would be exterminated in a horrific fashion. Now, I'm talking about the authors, the journalists of the day back pre-Second World War. And the reason I feel this is important is because if we are to compare current history with true history of the early 20th century, you've got to have reliable sources. And a lot of people, for example, rely on Wikipedia. And, Wikipedia, Joe, I mean, that can be edited. I mean, the information there is, although there are citations, appropriate citations, and I think that they strive to be accurate, but it's edited by humans, and a lot of times humans with agendas, right? I mean, you found things.
Depends on the subject matter you're looking up. Usually when it's a more controversial issue, you'll have both sides of the coin being represented as of late, from what I've seen. So, but yeah, most controversial issues are agenda-driven and can be.
Right.
But like you said, I think they do and have been doing a better job at trying to make sure the content is, at least if there's going to be one side of an argument stated, the other one's given also.
Okay, well, but we have to expand our materials, I believe, to really get a good picture of what's taking place today. If we, and I truly believe, of course, that there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, the playbook of the Luciferians and the Satanists and the people, the people who are warring against Christians right now today are the same. It's the same Antichrist spirit. It's the same globalist, Luciferian, satanic spirit propelling these people. So with that in mind, for example here, if you look at Germany prior to the Nazis, you'll find that to be truly accurate, Europe, people will say Europe was a Christian continent in the decades leading up to the Second World War. But if you really get into the research of it, you're going to find that that's not necessarily true. Europe had long been wafting toward open hostility to Christianity, drifting toward this open hostility, and that was closely tied to socialism and the rise of those sciences that led millions to believe that social engineering could replace God, or the God of Christians, and the Jews. Okay? And I think if you, that one statement alone, based on research from contemporaneous documents, books, and even newspaper reports and concurrent with World War II, I think you can verify this. For example, lectures on socialism in the 19th century blamed poverty on Christianity. There was the same anti-Semitism of the late 19th century that led to scandals like the Dreyfus Affair in France was just as vicious toward Christianity. Hatred of Christianity and anti-Semitism went hand in hand. The government of France, for example, before the Second World War, was hostile to Christianity, just as hostile to Christianity as it was to the Jews. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is what we're seeing playing out today is the same playbook, the same template, but we have to be truly accurate when we look at history. The the government, and going back, and I was amazed at what we found, but the government of France had a cabinet office back then regulating the religions. And you know what it was called? It was called the Ministry of Cults. Are we not seeing now Christianity, especially fundamental Christianity, being categorized as a cult, fundamentalist Christianity? I mean, we're seeing it. We're seeing it play out. Well, there's nothing new under the sun. So to understand what's currently happening, we have to. It does help to look back into history. And if you look at, since we're using France as an example here, the leader of the so-called right in France was a rabid opponent of Christianity. In his reports, his columns, articles about priests and nuns, well, they rivaled the pornographic and repulsive articles of certain Nazis about the so-called lecherous Jews preying on innocent Aryan virgins. Okay, I mean it's insidious to the core. You know, and it got to the point where Germans and the French stopped taking God seriously, and there was contempt. Contempt for Jews is directly related to that disbelief. Germans, pre-World War II, they had begun to think that the world was their creation, not the creation of God. The German, the government at that time, they toyed with life. Okay, the DNA. Their scientific experiments were. They were. I mean, you know what they did. I mean, but that led to this rejection of faith of the Jews, but it was a rejection of faith of Christians as well. See, the mentality here, the psychology, is what I'm trying to really push forward. When you look at the war on Christians, the war on Jews, when you mention the Second World War to the people who are really educated in history, most people will say, well, it was really a war against Jews, but dismiss or at least diminish the war that was launched against Christians at that time. But we have to look at the exact events as they occurred and compare them today and to today. And I'm going to tell you something right now. We're seeing the exact same thing play out today as our ancestors witnessed back during pre-war Germany. If you go back even further, during the First World War, Germans began in even greater numbers to turn away from real religious faith, and especially Christianity. You know how, for example, the League of Nations led to, or the Treaty of Versailles led to the beginning of World War II, or at least the motive, if you will, for Germany's, or the rise of Hitler, I should say, in Nazi Germany. Well, what happened during the First World War and during that time period really led to the rise of the war against Christians during the same time period. I mean, after the First World War, in the years and even decades before the Nazis came to power, Christians more and more lost faith in their own Christianity. Germans began to formally leave Christianity in large numbers. In 1920 alone, more than 300,000 people formally resigned from the Christian faith. And if you look during the time period from 1918 to 1931, 2.4 million evangelical Christians formally renounced their faith as well, as did almost 500,000 Catholics. We're seeing some interesting parallels right now that is very relevant to the war that's being launched by Obama, from the beginning of his announcing his candidacy on the Pergamon altar. Remember that? Boy, you talk about some pretty interesting parallels. There's just one right there, and that's more of a kind of a merely a flowery one, or kind of an anecdotal one, but it is one nonetheless. But what we're seeing today, and we're seeing a significant drop in the number of people who associate themselves with Christianity in the United States in particular, and we're seeing that fact being exploited by the people, the anti-Christians. And I'm going to be writing some white papers, if you will, about this, and here as now my time is becoming a little bit freer, away from the nuts and bolts construction here. But having said all of that, just take a look, folks, of where we're at and what all this legislation that we're seeing, whether it is through congressional legislation, whether it's through Supreme Court decisions, whether it's through executive actions and orders. Look at the core intent of all of this. And who are the winners and losers in this? Arguably the losers, the true losers are the Christians, and the true losers are the conservatives, the moral and social conservatives, and economic conservatives. The winners are the globalists. Now I'm talking about practical, in all practicality. The globalists and the tyrants. And it doesn't matter what political party with which they're associated. Matters not, because there's only one political party, and it's the uniparty of the Democrats, Republicans, all under the umbrella of the globalists. But one thing, in just continuing the comparison between the pre-World War II and time during the Second World War to today, when you look, if there's anything clear about the Nazis, it was that they hated Jews, and certainly this extended to a hatred of the religion of Judaism, the historical faith of the Jewish people. But the Nazis, they hated Christianity. Nazis, more than most Germans, were hostile or even indifferent to Christianity. Hitler originally appeared to just ignore Christianity. And think about that today. How there was this gross indifference, has been this gross indifference to Christianity. Almost like I'll just leave it at that. But now you're seeing this antagonistic, warlike approach to Christianity. Within a year of taking power, Hitler was saying that Christianity was incapable of uniting the Germans, and that only an entirely new world theory was capable of doing so. That came from the papers and from the speeches of Hitler contemporaneous to his rise to power. Now think about that, where we're at today. In the politicians and the justices and the judges and anyone with power. Think about that statement. I'm going to repeat that again. Within a year of taking power, Hitler was saying that Christianity was incapable of uniting the Germans, and that only an entirely new world theory was capable of doing so. Isn't this what we're seeing now with a new world order? And aren't the movers and shakers the top of the line, or the top of the line industrialists and as well as the politicians? Are we not seeing this push toward this new world order agenda, just as Hitler was saying publicly back pre-war Germany? Absolutely. This, by the way, that was not just the position of Hitler. Also, the Nazi supporters, the German faith movement. And I can be more specific and mention, for example, a Dr. Krauss, who on November 13th, 1933, said, "Hereafter there would be no admixture of foreign elements in the German religion. The Old Testament must be repudiated. The new must be cleansed of disfiguring passages." Doesn't this sound familiar? Doesn't it have this ring of familiarity to it? I think so. And there must be in the church no persons of alien blood, meaning we reject the crucifix. Okay, those are not my words. So, I mean, those are the words of Nazi leaders. And if you can believe this, or as I was doing research and we were doing collectively research, there were other Nazi leaders that were much more hostile to Christianity than Hitler, the leader of Germany. And are we not seeing this today with Obama and other leaders? Of course we are. Martin Bormann, the associate of Hitler, especially hated Christianity. Goebbels frequently made fun of Christian morality. Nazis in general considered Christianity a soul, a problem of the soul, foreign and unnatural. Himmler despised Christianity and members of the faith, and formally became agnostic in order to become a member of the Secret Service or the SS. So, but the bottom line here, we are seeing the same boilerplate template, in my view, in our research, based on our research, play out today. And people say, well, and there is a phrase, and I don't recall what it is, but there's a phrase that people use today that is saying, well, you're overstating the case. You're comparing today's events to Nazi Germany, and it's kind of like a mental illness almost, or erroneous. It's journalistically improper to do so. BS. That's all I got to say. If you look at the hatred against Jews and Christians back during and concurrent with World War II by the Nazis, and the complicity of other countries, and even the complicity of America, man, I'm going to tell you right now, the Nazi war on Christians and today's war on Christians, they've got some very eerie parallels. The persecution of Christians, unlike that of the Jews, really was not publicized to the outside world. And I don't want to diminish in any way, shape, or form the persecution of the Jews, but a lot of times the persecution of Christians was not included, or has not been included, in recent revised history books. We always look at this, the destruction of Christians, had come after the destruction of Jews or later than the destruction of Jews. The Jews were first on the agenda, and Christians were then later came into play. I mean, later disposed of, shall we say. The Christians were damned by the Nazis, and by the people around Hitler, in the eyes of people who were already crazed against the Jews. So it was just a simple step forward, if you will, or a natural progression. The actions of the Nazis against Christianity were manifest in the early actions of the Nazis themselves. If you go back to 1934, and this is where we were getting into this, the new standard of the encyclopedia, the New Standard Encyclopedia of 1934, and this is why we have to go back into the books that have not been revised. Scarcely after the Nazis had come to power, again, this is back in 1934, noted that attacks on the clergy and suppression of Catholic organizations was frequent. Okay, you'd be hard-pressed to find that information in the revised documentation, and even some of the stuff that's on the History Channel and what have you. There's been this revision there. Why is this important? Why am I bringing this up? Because what we're watching, or what we're experiencing, is the result of revisionist history.
And it's not just in books. Many important stories from the internet, and I'll give one example: the D.C. Madam story.
There you go.
That's been pulled from Google.
Yeah, you see, okay, that's a really great example. Folks, do you know the story of the D.C. Madam? And
at least last I checked, and I came across that from, I think, Free Republic or Tree of Liberty thread talking about that.
Well, exactly. And when you start pulling things, especially with this generation today, when you rely so heavily on the internet, it can be controlled. And I understand books, the information in books can be controlled as well, but it's a little bit more difficult. And then the destruction, of course, to erase something from the internet, a few keystrokes, but to wipe out a book, you need a fire, basically, or one big shredder, so it's a little bit of a different process. But what's important, the reason I'm bringing this up is because this will be coming into play this year and in the years to come. It's already been in play, but we really have to be accurate. And when we take a few steps back and look at what's going on in the macrocosm, we have to be accurate. One of the things, and I'm going to close this out here with a few mentions here. I want to mention too, the Nazi war on Christian education was something very remarkable and significant. Well, what's happening with Christian education in America? What's been happening with Christian education in America? The Nazis conducted a systematic effort to keep children from learning or practicing Christianity. We see that today in government schools, but we see that even more rabid. That there's a more rabid war here. Children back in Germany were encouraged to abandon the religious classes, and teachers were prohibited from continuing the lessons. And only the clergy, certain clergy, were allowed to teach religion, whereby a further reduction of the number of classes became, what? Inevitable, right? Of course. Well, you had then the Ministry of Education. Compare that to our Department of Education, which should be abolished in its entirety for numerous reasons. But moreover, we're seeing this parallel, psychological parallel and spiritual parallel. The very same spirit that propelled the Nazis during and before the Second World War is the exact same spirit and agenda that's propelling the globalists and the people here in the United States, especially currently. And what we're going to be seeing too, the Nazi war on Christian education moved at least as fast as the Nazi war on Christian churches. I found something here. By 1935, it had reached the point that Catholics or Catholic parents viewed with profound alarm the virtual segregation of their children. And you can see in books and in resource material from, again, contemporaneous to the time period, this unfold. Well, this is what's happening today. I had mentioned, I think on a show here not too long ago, 1935, the Nazis attacked Christian schools themselves, putting signs, placards on walls, on houses, and on telephone, or at that time it would be telegraph poles, that stated, "One people, one Reich, one Fuhrer, one community school." And we're seeing the push, when you take Agenda 21 under the United Nations, when you take the Department of Education here, when you take the very rabid, litigious groups that are assailing the schools, school districts, and infiltrating the schools and school districts, we're seeing this play out more modernly than we did back in Nazi Germany. But it's playing out the same nonetheless. The harassment of Christian youth, particularly Catholic youth, was appalling during and pre-World War II times. Look at what's happening today in America. Again, we're seeing parallels. Now, what we're seeing take place here in the military. I mean, Joe, you had a story or a report. I'm not sure if you have it still up or if you have it handy there. A female in the military or a woman. What was that? What was that? Because that's pretty applicable to what we're talking about here, about this Nazi ideology.
Yeah, a crazy story. A woman, a Marine, was court-martialed for refusing to remove a Bible verse
from her computer.
Yeah,
right?
A United States Marine was convicted at a court-martial for refusing to remove a Bible verse on her computer, a verse of Scripture the military determined could easily be seen as contrary to good order and discipline. The plight of Lance Corporal Sterling seems unbelievable. A member of the armed forces criminally prosecuted for displaying a slightly altered passage of Scripture from the Old Testament, "No weapon formed against me shall prosper."
Something that Steve Quill and Pastor Langford often cite, a passage they often cite, although they're not military, but nonetheless, okay, true.
Sterling, who represented herself at trial, was convicted on February 1st of 2014 in a court-martial at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, after she refused to obey orders from a staff sergeant to remove the Bible verse from her desk. She was found guilty of failing to go to her appointed place of duty, disrespect towards a superior commissioned officer, and 4 specifications of disobeying a lawful order of a non-commissioned officer. As it stands now, Sterling is unemployed and looking for work. It's a process made harder because of the bad conduct discharge from the military. Hopefully, Liberty Institute will be able to help restore this Christian Marine's good name and then expunge the charge. But yes, she was given a bad conduct discharge. She was reduced in rank from Lance Corporal to private. Both lower court and appellate court ruled that Religious Freedom Restoration Act did not apply to her case because displaying a Bible verse does not constitute religious exercise. And it goes on to say that this was the religious liberty law, and a high-powered U.S. former Solicitor General taken up her cause and has filed an appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. If the government can order a Marine not to display a Bible verse, then they can try to order her not to get a religious tattoo or go to church on Sunday, said Liberty Institute attorney Michael Berry. Restricting a Marine's free exercise of religion is blatantly unconstitutional, he said. But yeah, I mean, where does this line end or begin? I mean, what are we seeing here?
Well, we are, and once more, I just want to back to the real pre-World War II and World War II Nazi history that's being expunged from the annals of history. And we're being led as collectively to the internet, which is revising history. Because one thing that did happen, Operation Paperclip, but you've seen the importing of not just Nazis to the United States, but the Nazi spirituality. And believe me, it was a spirit, a very ugly spirit of the Antichrist, an Antichrist spirit. But that has had time to evolve here in the United States and act or grow covertly underground and like an ink stain or like a spilled glass of Kool-Aid on a white tablecloth. You can see or grape juice. You can see that dark color covering that white tablecloth and just growing and growing and growing. And we're seeing that happen here across the United States. And the Christian response, and this is where we're at today. Who opposed the Nazis on moral grounds, actually? Well, who openly resisted the Nazis? The only real opponents, when you go back in history, take a look at who were the players. They were the Christians. Well, what about the Bolsheviks? Did they not oppose the Nazis? If you know history? Well, in 1931, the Communist Party of Germany cooperated with the Nazi Party in the Prussian referendum. Okay? The Christians, there was a pushback in Nazi Germany. If you look really under the covers, under the cover of revisionist history, and I know we're kind of up against it, but we see the playing out here. The development of the remnant in the United States. If you use the parallel of Nazi Germany pre-war and wartime Nazi Germany, we are seeing the parallels develop. And if we are seeing so many parallels, then can we not extrapolate perhaps an outcome? I think we can, or at least, some of the things that happened, may they not, or perhaps they'll happen again, this time here in America or wherever you're listening to this in the West. And we do have, in addition to the Nazis, we've got other players now taking a greater role, such as the Muslims cooperating with this, there was a Muslim, well-documented Muslim Nazi cooperation. But now we're seeing Islamic cooperation with the denizens of the White House and the executive branch and the branch of our intelligence agencies and the State Department and all throughout America. Well, this is part of it. This is part of the plan, and the pushback by the remnant, by you, by us, by the people who are really have skin in the game. We're in for some rocky times. If you look back and look at the real history, compare it to today, and you can like a roadmap, that, of not a GPS, but like a road map that we used to use when we used to travel long distances. You can almost plot the course of where this war is going to take us. And it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be it's going to be bad. It's not going to be for the faint of heart. Faint of heart. You're going to need that spirit, that divine spirit, and you're also going to need some rational and sensible, practical manners, methods, plans to combat what's coming and what's here. I shouldn't say what's coming, what's already here and just growing. Because at the end of the day, whether it's Jade Helm, whether it's the executive orders, executive actions, regardless of what the motive or method, I should say mode and method, there is a war against God at the very heart, at the very core of everything that's taking place. And if you want to make sense of what's going on, you must contextualize events, because events by themselves will not give you the answers you need. They must be put in the proper context. And the proper context is there is a war waging in heaven. There's a war waging here on earth. There's a war against God. And some people are unwitting participants, dupes, if you will, in this war. Many of the Marxist progressives, whatever, Marxist, communists, are a part of this. And even, I would say, many of the so-called well people who believe in what they're doing for the good of the collective are part of this. But you see, it's the same spirit, and in some cases, the same lineage. And that's another part, the same lineage that is waging this war. And then you've got the Islamic State, the Muslims and the Islamic State as well now, as a force multiplier in the war against Christians. And that force multiplier has invaded every aspect, every department, every section of our government. And as you go down to the states and local areas, the schools, this war is a hot war. And how this will play out this summer, the globalists, they need to step on the gas, step on the throttle, because they only have a limited time to get the job done. I'm not date setting here, but when you look at the agenda, look at the time that they believe that they've got to have things wrapped up, and Obama will remain in power for only another 16, 18 months, whatever it is.
Yeah, 18 months.
All right. So he's got a job to do. His people, the people around him, they know their time is limited. Congress knows, the people in Congress know their time is limited. So the damage they intend to and must inflict, they've got to, they've got to hurry it up. And that's what they intend to do this summer, this fall, and even into next summer. And their tools are going to be the economy. The tools are going to be the race situation. The tools are going to be the attacks on free speech. One of the biggest tools is the pretext of equality. That, and I take that to say that the Supreme Court will likely rule, barring God's divine hand in this, that homosexual marriage is protected by the Constitution. And I know that that's not the correct terminology, but you get the idea here. But that's a front. That's one battle. That's one battlefront of the war. And that's a direct assault on our Christian beliefs. So an assault. And at the end of the day, you can secularize the war by saying it's a war on free speech, or you can properly contextualize the war, which is basically a war against God. Those who choose to secularize or maintain that secularization are missing the bigger picture. It's a war against God. And it's a war against those people, the remnant, the Christians. It's a war against us. Well, I'm just going to finish this and say this. I promise every one of you, and I will tell you this flat out, and then I'm going to stop. In this war against Christians that we take personally, I take this personally. We know how the war ends. We know that these demonic creatures, this Luciferian enemy will not prevail. But we know there has to be a fight. I promise you this. I'm all in. I'm all in. We're all in.
To remain and be vigilant as the devil seeks those he may devour. So we need to understand the time we're in and what we need to do to make it through this time, because it's coming. And
it's here, buddy.
We're going through it one way or the other, whether we like it or not, whether we're ready or not. So prepare in Christ. The rest will come as He shows you. Coming up right after this break, Hagmann Hagmann Report today, May 26, 2015, and as every Tuesday in hour number 2, we are joined by our special guest, Mr. Stan Deyo. His website is standeyo.com. His book's Cosmic Conspiracy, his wife's book, Dare to Prepare, two of the most popular books in the preparedness and prophetic community. And it's great to have you back on another week, Stan. You got to have a lot going on, as usual.
Yeah, here we are. Another week has gone by. What have you guys been talking about first hour?
Well, the first hour was it was the war against Christianity, basically, and how it parallels the unrevised history of pre-Nazi and Nazi Germany. That was the first hour. So the war against Christianity kind of set the stage, or was the topic of the first hour. But having said that, you take us wherever you...
Yeah, we had a lot of other news we didn't get into. But we didn't hit what's been going on in Texas, weather-wise, and some GMO stuff. But yeah, let's go where you want to take us.
Let's go with that Houston storm. If you'll go to my website there, to standeyo.com, to the show images page, the usual link, at the very top of that, that's the first subject I want to talk about. I have the Navy FENMOC Center's sea surface temperature anomaly for, about 12 hours ago. 24 hours ago, 25th of May. Okay, if you get it up, and you're going to see, now, you can't get this, you couldn't anyway until we went to air just now, you can't get this image off of the FENMOC facility because that part of their facility, strangely enough, went offline. You can't access it, unavailable. And that was about an hour after I pulled down this image. Think conspiratorially, but I'm sure it's something. But their whole site's not down, just the one that we wanted to know about. And anyway, what I'm showing you on this map relates to what's happened in Houston and what will continue to happen in the northwest of the United States, right on down through, well, it'll touch Colorado and go into the Great Lakes area where you are and into the New England states. And it's worse down in South America, just off the Ecuadorian coast. What this orange stuff is showing how rapidly the ocean the sea surface temperature is rising over the last 30-day average, and we've never seen anything like this in all the years I've been doing studies on sea surface temperature analysis to predict earthquakes and things like that. I've never ever seen this El Nino pattern hit the equator, move up along the Baja, up into off the coast of British Columbia. I mean, it's just the whole west coast of the North American continent has offshore heating of the sea that is severe. Now, what this does is boil up moisture up into the atmosphere, which gets caught in the prevailing wind currents coming from Canada and from Siberia, and drops in over the United States as rain, snow, or sleet. And surprise, surprise, we're getting a lot of that from the British Columbia hot spot, then we're getting a lot of it from the one off the Baja, because there are prevailing winds that are blowing that up through Texas, Arkansas, and up towards you guys. Now, the next thing we got to look for, I'll have to check. I didn't have time before air, but we'll have to check and see what the rain is like in the western side of South America, particularly Ecuador, Peru, in that area, to see if they're getting the results of this boil off as well. We have had here in Pueblo West, where I live, we've been here for we've been here for about 14 years, and I look back today and check the weather patterns over our area for the last 25 years, and I found an amazing thing. We're in high desert, and in a whole year, we might get somewhere between 11 and 13 inches on average for the last 15 years or so. If you look back at that 20-year period, though, if you look back at 1995, 94, 93 in that area, there were 2 years there back-to-back that we had between 70 and 90 inches of rain in this high desert area. Now, that's before we got here. And in one of those years, there was 5.5 feet of snowfall here in Pueblo West, where we live. But then after that, it all went dry, barren, and for years and years and years and years. This year, already, we are twice the amount of rainfall that any other year we've seen back in that period, except for those big years, gets here, like normally about 4.5 inches. We're at about 9 inches today, as of today, which means that we've got almost the average rainfall that we've had for the last 15 years in the first 5 months of this year. So our rain is increasing, but that's because we're on the edge of these prevailing high-altitude boil-off, steam that's being condensed into rain and sleet and stuff that is hitting more Texas, New Mexico, and Wyoming, Montana, and it will be hitting, I think, probably Northern California, those areas. And you can look at this anomaly map and tell that. Now, if you look at the other maps they have when it comes back online, they have just the normal temperature. But that's a different map than this. This shows the exceptional temperature rise over the average temperature. And that tells us that no matter what temperature they've got out there, this is an exceptional rise. As I say, I know we're in an El Nino pattern, but this El Nino pattern just exploded. Normally, it wouldn't come up as far as the Baja at all. It might hit on a line parallel to lower Mexico or Honduras, somewhere in there, but it's all the way up into Canada. I mean, this is extraordinary. You can see the thing there in front of you. You see what I'm talking about. So although there are, 16 people or so have already been killed by the flooding, it's the worst flooding they've had in 1,000 years in records they've determined there in Houston. And I think what they're doing is saying it's so rare that it would be a 1,000-year event. Not that they have records for 1,000 years. I don't think they've got that. But anyway,
and Stan,
let's look. We're going to see more of this heading your way.
Doing research here, just pulling up some charts from NOAA. It looks like in Peru, at least for the last 7 days, in Ecuador, they say during the last 7 days, from May 18th through the 25th, below average precipitation was observed for Western Colombia, Venezuela, parts of Brazil, the Amazon basin, from Colombia, Paraguay, Chile, and it's been below average for South America during this monsoon system cycle, they say.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Is anywhere else over toward Brazil on the other side, have they picked up the benefit of this coastal heating?
Yeah, south of Brazil, they said that there was not unusually high, but higher levels of precipitation in the last 7 days.
It'd be interesting to see where in South America. Oh, sorry, there's a big clap of thunder outside. We're fixing to hit our next round.
I'm going to send you a link.
Say again?
I'm going to send you a link, Stan, to this. It's a PowerPoint, but it details. It's a PowerPoint that is from NOAA that details the precipitation in South America for the last 7 to 30 days.
Be interesting to see if you got one of those for North America too. So we can just take a look at the patterns. That'll tell us where the prevailing cool winds are that are condensing the moisture that's boiling up off the ocean. Now, since Peru and Ecuador are right on the equator, the prevailings would probably spin around toward southern Peru, southern Brazil, maybe toward Argentina. I can see that the thermals go right through Argentina down to the lower right-hand side. You can see that red pattern. So, I would say that would be the thing. Where are you sending me that by email or sending it by Skype?
I'll put it in the Skype here. Coming your way.
Now, Stan, you said something that caught my attention while scouring the news reports. Both Fox and CNN had said that they expect things in Texas to get much better or get better. Now, what I heard you say was expect more of this.
Over the next few weeks and months. I mean, this El Nino pattern doesn't go away. It's sitting out there boiling up goodies to drop on the United States on the lower 48.
Wow.
I know they've had drought up, in California and on the West Coast up as far as Washington, severe in California, but still drought in Washington and Oregon. But let's look at this and see, because I tell you there's water boiling up here, and it's got to go somewhere and condense, and it needs a cool breeze to do that. So maybe this stuff in South America may not condense until it gets further down toward the South Pole tip of South America to Argentina way. So that'd be what we'd want to see in that link. Okay, I see the link up in the other screen. Okay, I'm pulling it up now.
Yeah, and it's
I got to download it. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll do that. But anyway, something severe is happening to our weather. That just tells me that for darn sure. And this is driven by a number of things, in my opinion. The solar flares and CMEs that we're seeing on the increase in the last 10 years, and this year particularly. The changes in the Earth's magnetic field, because the North Pole is splitting, and it's moving twice as fast in a split as the South Pole is. And I think from what I've read in most of the scientific papers on the trumpeting sounds that people are wondering about, they're hearing these strange, the vibrating sounds in the atmosphere, some loud claps sometimes. I am pretty sure that I agree with the establishment analysis of this, in that the increased solar wind and the increased magnetic interaction with our weakening magnetic field produces vibrations between the ionosphere and the surface of the Earth as the solar wind impacts the outer layers of our atmosphere that are charged. Coupled with the movements of the core of the planet, they're even saying that this is affecting gravity on the Earth, believe it or not. You wouldn't notice it, but it's causing acoustic gravity waves. That's what they call it, sound gravity waves, to occur throughout the atmosphere so we can hear it. And the ones we hear are only in the upper frequency range. There are a lot more in the lower or infrasound range that we can't hear. The dogs and cats and stuff can hear that, but we can't. So the trumpets to this weather phenomenon as well. It's all horribly interactive and a nightmare to try to guess. But I can see the simple side of it is that we're going to see extreme weather in the United States and in southern South America and some on the West Coast if they can get a cool breeze up that far. But see, we're up high enough above the equator that the cool breezes come down from the North Pole in the spins of the air masses and condenses that stuff and drops it on us. So in this case, with South America, it'll drop it on the lower portions of South America, or it'll drop it, into the Atlantic Ocean. But you can see, just follow those red spots, the dark red spots, then look for the prevailing winds that would cool it from the polar regions. So the South Pole is not going to be so exciting, but up in the North Pole we can see excessive rains and will be hitting in, let's see here, in western Russia and possibly in Japan. Yeah, not too much there in North Africa, but that's not a surprise either. But anyway, those are the things we need to look at there, and I'll have a look at that PowerPoint while we're getting to the next subjects. But expect Stan, to continue.
Okay, okay. As I'm looking at this map, and folks listening via archive, go to show images on standeyo.com, and you can find the anomaly map. But just to explain to people, the intense red is located pretty far north on the western edge of the United States and extending down toward the Baja Peninsula as well. Now on the eastern coast, how would this temperature affect it? Tell me again, like from Maine to the Carolinas, it would look like, or even from, far north, even further north. How would that affect the eastern seaboard, places like New Jersey, New York?
That's going to be interesting, Doug, because looking at it, it's got anomalous heating hotspots off of those of the Carolinas and up, into Nova Scotia way. They've got anomalous heating that forms a thermal updraft. At the same time that we've got heating coming across Texas, heading toward the New England coast, with cold air masses spinning off of the North Pole. It depends. Those cold air masses, if they hit that hot air mass off the coast, will they cause, will it cause a stagnation of the cold front and an inversion layer along the coast periodically, or rain dropping on? I don't know, but there's going to be a conflict here between those excessive heating spots and the northern air masses that spin down there in your direction. And that's going to be in conflict with the ones coming up through Baja, through Texas, through Arkansas, right on up through the New Madrid area up into your area.
Gotcha.
I'm looking at that.
Wow. It's going to, basically you've got cold and hot air, or you got it's going to be a storm, bad weather, I guess. Bottom line, bad weather.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm looking at that PowerPoint you sent on the rainfall that NOAA says for the last 30 days, and looking at South America, they have had heavy precipitation. It looks like in northern Brazil, right across from Ecuador, which has got some on the coast. But in fact, look at that. If I'm not reading that wrong, guys, the second graph in there, second picture, there's a bright red spot there on Ecuador, which shows 450 millimeters. I forget what that is, like in inches, but it'd probably be a lot. Right there, probably 18 inches of rain right there on the eastern side of Ecuador, and then the rain goes over into northern Brazil. And green, which is 90s. But do you see that, Doug? Are you looking at that?
Yeah, I am. Yes. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay,
what
that's
I'm
the
looking
last
at.
30 days. Okay, this anomaly doesn't go away quickly, and if you look at the last 7 days, the heavy rainfall, which would be exceptional, it looks like it goes whatever that country is, kind of just off to the east of Ecuador and the northern tip of Brazil. So, this is a great map, and it's showing me exactly what I expected to see. And I think this pattern will continue for several weeks and months even.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they say I don't know what the SST is.
That's the sea surface temperature.
Okay, it's the sea surface temperature anomalies are above average in the Pacific, below average in the low latitudes of the North Atlantic, and above average in the eastern tropical Atlanta. For details concerning El Nino, La Nina, go to the link below. That's on the, I think the 5th page, 7th page, slide 7.
Yes, 7.
and then it gets into, on page 8, atmospheric circulation after that. And it goes through a lot of good information in here, from wind temperature, sea temperature.
Well, yeah, if you go down to the 9th page of that PowerPoint report from NOAA, it shows you the prevailing wind patterns as of 23rd May, which will give you an idea where the polar winds come up and spin over the eastern side. You see that?
Yep.
And there's the temperature anomalies on the right side of that. Last 7 days, it's hot, and the polar air, when it comes up mixed with that, causes rainfall there, and we're seeing that on the maps. That's just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and the change
you found there. Yeah.
Wow. So the devastation we're seeing in Texas and you know, wow, it's going to continue.
We're going to see more of that up. We'll see more of that. In fact, we've seen some real good storms here north of us, which is because we're in kind of a little V shape that's semi-protected from the prevailing winds from the Baja going across into Texas, and from the winds coming down from Canada through Washington State. It puts a little V over the lower part of Colorado where we are, and so we're getting rain and some sleet. In fact, we might get some rain in the next 10 minutes, but it's more than normal, but not enough for us to panic here. But in Colorado Springs and north of it, they're getting heavy, slushy rain and flooding roads and stuff this last 5 days. So I think it'll head your way. I don't think we'll keep it all with us. I think it'll head to the eastern states as well. And I don't know what that wall of heat off the coast is going to do over in the New England states. But anyway, it's interesting.
Question from a listener, and I'm not sure, the planetary alignments. There's some upcoming planetary alignments, and people are associating these with potential earthquakes. And this listener, Doreen, asks, I'm wondering what Stan thinks about the planetary alignment that will take place on May 28th. Many are predicting earthquakes. And I'd add to that, would these planetary alignments have any effect on our weather, aside from earthquakes?
Indirectly, they may have some effect by what causes the coronal mass ejections and solar wind to increase. The gas giant planets, Saturn and Jupiter, are massive, as you know, and their gravitational connection to our sun and their electromagnetic and magnetic connections are strong as well in the what's called the solar wind. And solar wind is charged positive particles, but it's also got a magnetic component, which we tie into the sun's magnetic field. Occasionally, there's a crack in the Earth's magnetic shield, and solar particles stuff get right through that. The alignment they're talking about, I have been over that today. I have gone over backwards and forwards. I've checked astrology maps to see when Jupiter was in what constellation when you looked up at it, and Saturn. And I was following what one of your listeners sent me about a guy's discussion on the YouTube about it, and seeing where he put the alignment to make this earthquake, and he tried to tie it to what Nostradamus said in one of his quatrains. The one here, I'll just quote from his letter, and I thank you, Helen, for sending this in. It says here, the trembling so hard in the month of May, Saturn, Capricorn, Jupiter, Mercury in Taurus, Venus also, Cancer, Mars in Virgo. Hail will fall larger than an egg. And then you go to a YouTube link and see this guy talk about it. Well, I've got several programs, Stellarium, and a new one I use called Solar System Scope. And I added a few more in my private thing here, private links to astrology things, because I don't believe in all that, but to see where these planets are when viewed from the Earth at certain times, even what constellations. And for the life of me, I cannot agree with what that guy is saying about the Nostradamus forecast for the positions of Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Because when you try to use what it says literally, in the order it says it in the Nostradamus document, it says Saturn is in it may be in Capricorn, Jupiter, Mercury in Taurus, Venus also, where is it, in Cancer, Mars in Virgo. the way that this is cryptically written by Nostradamus could mean that Saturn is in some other place, and Jupiter's in some other place than what is obvious here in the flow of the sentence. But where they are now, they're not anywhere close to what that alignment says, and that guy says they are, but they're not. I mean, you can check Stellarium and say, okay, where is Jupiter at the moment? Well, Jupiter is on the tip of the claw of Cancer, the crab, and it's nowhere close to what you take Jupiter be in Taurus, or the bull, because that's right around the sun. It just doesn't add up the way he's trying to sell the argument. Having said that, I have a link there that I set up there last week. See planetary alignments for Richter 7.9 plus earthquakes from 2004 to 2014, and you go to that sub page of mine, and I have shown the earthquakes and the dates that they've occurred with the planets being aligned a certain way. And for sure, if you look at where the planets are, say on the 19th of May, it's been 7 days, that's last week, you will see that the classic pattern where Saturn is close to the Earth, in alignment visually, in a line between Saturn, the Earth, and Mercury and the Sun, and Jupiter is 90 degrees from that, off to the right. It's a classic pattern for high-value earthquakes to occur on the planet. Now, when you look at what we've been talking about in the weather to start with today, with this huge storms forming and hailstorms, I mean, I've seen some up in the spring in the last 10, 20 days that just been, really exceptional hailfall. And fortunately, we've been spared that. We just get small pea size, which didn't kill our plants entirely, just hit a few leaves until we put the shields up. But this is telling us that this tremendous sun machine that drives our weather is generating thunderclouds that reach way up into the higher altitudes of our atmosphere, altocumulus, and they cool off the hot air coming up from the surface, especially off from the coast, like I was telling you, off the seashore there. And that air is freezing into large hail and then falling down at great speed onto the ground below. So this is going to intensify, and that tells me, okay, we've got very peculiar heating off of the coast of western United States, which is making the density of the water on the surface for a few feet less dense, relieving some of the weight on that plate, which is causing some pressure on the Cascadia subduction zone, which is the fault zones running up from California right up into Washington. And coupled with that, I've seen in the map that I've got here for the earthquakes in the last 7 days in the West Coast and all over the United States. And the other patterns, that it's showing around the San Joaquin Valley, little fracture quakes and stuff like that, and down near the Salton Sea. Well, those are small, kind of stress-relieving cracks. But what interested me was that we've got, a Richter 5-ish so up in the toe of the Juan de Fuca Plate and one at the knee of it. And I know there's a volcano underneath there that is erupting as well. So we're seeing activity there while we're seeing the ocean heating, and we're wondering, okay, is this connected? And when I then look at the probability that we'll have a major earthquake, it's getting probable that we might see the western United States stress relief come into a big quake. There are just a number of little signs. Even the volcano, not near us, but down off of the coast of Ecuador at the Galapagos Islands, the Wolf volcano is erupting. And that's on the part of a little triangular plate that's trying to break. It's between several tectonic plates. It's a small little wedge. It's under pressure from all directions. So it's on the western side, the eastern side, of the Pacific Arc of Fire, like we are on our west coast. So that shows activity from there all the way up to, above, like near British Columbia. So are we going to have this earthquake? I don't know. I've had people, as I said last week, a couple rang me and said, look, we think we might take a vacation if there's any merit to this guy's predictions. Well, his figures, his alignment stuff, and all that kind of don't add up because of the way he tries to say it fits what Nostradamus says. But disregarding what that guy is saying for positions and looking at the proof that we have over the last, since about, where am I here? Since about 2004, where these alignments show that either 90-degree alignments or 180-degree alignments between Saturn and Jupiter, these massive planets, are in a certain position to Earth when we see large earthquakes on Earth. And the majority of them are close to the 90-degree structure, and that's where we are now, in a very telling situation. And we've seen Richter 8, 8.3, 8.2, 7.9 in the last 2 years with this alignment like it is, and the Earth being close to either Saturn or Jupiter as far as a line, not close physically, but in a line between Saturn and the Sun, or between Jupiter and the Sun and the Earth is close to that line. There's a lot of stuff I'm trying to explain that probably needs a more detailed explanation, and people's eyes will glaze over, but briefly speaking, that's what we're talking about. And you can see this. If you click on those images I've got, you can see what I'm talking about. The planets that I show in this particular version of the solar system their orbits are like they're equal distance from each other, which is not the true way this occurs, but it just shows you without making a huge picture, if you drew a line from these various planets straight to the Sun, where everybody would be. I hope that's a little bit clearer than mud, but sorry about that.
Actually, I understood that. I get that. Okay.
All right. Here, looking, we do have some questions for you in our
quite a few
here.
Yeah, quite a few actually. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well,
here's a question from Marie, Stan. Someone I listen to is seriously believing a flat Earth theory. I think if all the planets we see are roundish, then the Earth has to be also. Stan, you know more about astrophysics than most. Should I even give this consideration at all? And we've had a caller or two talk about this, that they believe that there is a possibility of flat Earth, and I understand that the planets are round, and I have a telescope, I see them with my eyes, but it amazes me sometimes that people still think the Earth is flat, and some have good reasons to think it's flat, not scientific, but that just interests me. But
let's see. Let's the equations of mass and gravity and gravitational attraction are pretty much as we observe standard in our part of the universe, and maybe the whole universe, as far as we can see and determine. Therefore, if we put satellites in orbit around a flat plate, there are going to be points of that mass which are weaker gravitationally by a lot compared to the edges, which would be stronger, which would make our satellites go crazy, and they would go up and down, the mass the concentration of mass would be vastly different when it's over the plate versus when it's on the edge, or the mass gravitational force is stronger. When you fly around the globe and look at the angle, say from where you are to the horizon, that would have to change and become almost zero when you get to the flat side. There have to be an edge, but we've never seen that. There are just so many things that scientifically you can back this up with, and I just think that's madness. It really is. Even the Bible talks about the orb, the roundness of the planet. So
right, and aside from that, those people with satellite TV, their images would be. Never mind. I'm not even going to go there.
Yeah, I do have two questions. This one will ask. This is from a listener, Robert, from Australia. Wanted to ask Stan if you're aware of the article that came out a few days ago via the Telegraph about concerns due to a buildup of gases in containers leaking radioactive water at the Fukushima power plant.
Oh, I heard this too.
According to the article, there was a risk of a hydrogen explosion because 10% of the containers inspected are leaking radioactive water. If static electricity was to ignite a significant build of hydrogen gas, how large would the explosion be, he asks.
Well, it'd be a local event over there, and I don't think that it would be like a hydrogen bomb or that kind of stuff. It would just be a chemical hydrogen-oxygen combination, which, looking at the containment they've got, unless it's pressurized and liquefied, it won't even be as big as the Challenger explosion when they ignited their fuel tanks. You wouldn't want to be in the immediate vicinity, but I would look more past such an explosion at what it might make airborne. What kind of radioactive particles might ensue from that. I don't know. I wouldn't want to live in the area anyway, but I don't think it's going to be a major concern to Japan other than pollution.
Well, with respect to Fukushima, I mean, this is the satanic gift that just keeps on giving, right? I mean, we're talking about the disruption of sea life, the contamination of sea life, of our food system, or food supply. Are we not? I mean, Fukushima is one massive, significant event that really is not getting enough airtime, is it? Or is this just me?
Doug, I don't know. I can go conspiratorial and say they're not telling us, and that might well be the case to preserve the economy or prevent panic or moving or whatever. But there are so many ways that theoretically, hypothetically, let's say, that the radioactive particles from Fukushima could enter our food supply and enter our air and water supply, that if it's actually happening, there's no mitigating it. We're going to get it. And, you just have to hope you're not in a situation where you're going to be exposed to a lot of it until it's dissipated.
Right.
I think I'd worry more about our nuclear reactors in California and other places near the New Madrid and on our coast that could suffer potential damage in earthquakes, or in power outages, EMP attack, and that kind of stuff, which would set these things off. It would absolutely make America unlivable.
Oof. Okay.
Moving along, Stan, we had a volcanic eruption yesterday. What was the name of it? The Wolf. Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
we were talking about that.
Wolf down in Galapagos.
Yeah. And somebody said that there on your show images page there was something about the recent EQs of the Canary Islands, and we know
that's a typo. It's a typo.
Oh, okay.
That's really the one at Wolf Crater. I apologize.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to clear that up. Somebody had asked.
If you click on that picture and if you click on the picture and it comes up, look up in the URL and you'll see Wolf Volcano 526 or May 26.
Okay.
So I'll correct that later, but yeah. Good catch, sorry.
A question from Larry asked if you have had any updates on anything happening at CERN.
No, I haven't. Quick
No?
answer to that, I haven't. There's been too many other things chewing up the time.
Okay.
What, Stan, this is a good question to ask. What other things? I mean, we talked about the weather and the anomalous sea surface temperatures, but anything else in that period of time that you're looking at that you didn't hit that we should know about?
Let's see. Well, no, I think we've covered that. I'm pretty good here. Yeah. A number of things. We've listed Erdogan, I forget what his real title is. He's not the president, but he's the regent of Turkey. And he's trying to get his political party to gain enough seats, 2/3 majority in the Turkish parliament, to elect him, in essence, sultan, or the most powerful voice in the land, rather, than what he is now. He used to hold that position as president. Are you there?
Oh, yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, we're here.
Yep, we're here.
Hello?
Can you hear us, Stan?
Hello?
Stan, did you get knocked off there? Stan, we're here.
I'll type to him and
we
hear you.
Hello.
Yep.
Hello? Can you hear
Hello?
us?
Can you hear me yet?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
What caused that?
Don't know. You never went out. We heard you the whole time.
Yeah,
Huh?
we you never went out, Stan. You were loud and clear the whole time.
Oh, I couldn't hear you where I am. I don't know what happened, but okay, I couldn't even hear me. Yeah. Are you? I'm checking wires and cables. Give me a second here. See if there's something missing.
All right.
Can you still hear me? Type
Yeah,
in
we can.
In the,
Yeah,
it's just weird. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm getting a error message from something here. Yeah. No, that's just a report to saying that Joe's talking to me. All right, look, I don't know. I'll keep talking like it's working.
It's working.
And when you if I drop out again, well, let me know.
Okay.
And we'll try to figure it out later.
Type okay, I guess.
Okay. Here's another something dancing up and down on my screen. What's it saying?
Okay.
Are you still okay? Anyway,
Joe.
where were we? I'm sorry. What were we talking about before I thought we were cut off? Are you there?
Stan, yeah. Stan, can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got a question here that came in, kind of through an intermediary. Go ahead, Joe.
Back channel. Crop circles is the question, Stan. What is your take on crop circle?
Yeah, actually,
that was a joke. It did come from a weird source, though. And they wanted to know what your take on crop circles was.
Well, crop circles. I don't know that. In fact, I'm sure that not all of them are man-made, but why they formed originally might have been craft using spinning fields, which are gravitational fields around craft that cause grains to spin and break and leave that swirl pattern. But these more elaborate ones, this may be part. If we look at that as not man-made, it may be part of a prelude to the Great Deception, where Satan and his minions come and say, "We've been passing you these messages, now we'll interpret them for you." That type of thing. Other than that, I have no strong, thoughts on that. Sadly.
Okay.
I'm familiar with the work of Linda Moulton Howe with respect to crop circles and cattle mutilations and such. Do you consider her? I mean, if we were to direct this listener to a reputable source, I mean, who would it be, in your estimation?
Well, other than MUFON, I don't think I know of any. They've certainly done a number of studies on the wheat or grain stems of the grass that have been bent down by crop circles. And there is a pattern, a type of break in the stalk that is made by a heavy craft with ionizing radiation, and it leaves a signature in the cells of the grass stem and also in the shape of the break of the stem, which is different than if you could run around with a piece of wood and a string and a rope and whatever and stomp down the grass. So MUFON would be my first choice for you to contact in your state and pose the question to them. They're all over the world, and they have a lot of very clever chemists and physicists and engineers who are qualified members, and they have case histories of these things that they've investigated, which I'm pretty sure that they will be able to share with you and answer that question.
Okay? Gotcha. All right. Very good.
Interesting question from Tom. He asked, have you heard of huge dead zones in the ocean, and if there has been any facts on this?
Okay.
Yes.
What's a dead zone? I'm sorry. Can you define dead zone? Because we're not talking about cell service, obviously, right? What are we talking
it's where no life lives in, no fish, no plankton, stuff like that. Everything is dead. And there are a number of ideas put forward on that, whether it be something like, toxins in the water, gases in the water, methane bubbles that cause it in poison area, or rubbish floating around, and around that area it creates death to living things. There's one in the Gulf of Mexico. I forget what the details on it are, but it's near. Well, if you look at it, it's near Mississippi, on the coast there, and where the Mississippi, of course, empties into the Gulf of Mexico. There can be chemical and oil, pollution from, the oil well, the rig that exploded and collapsed, and all that stuff leaked into the Gulf of Mexico. It could be from that, but yeah, dead zones are just floating zones within the ocean in various places that are caused either man-made or other factors that are natural. And this particular one, I think we can explain to the oil spill from the I forget the BP's rig name, but anyway, from that rig.
The Horizon.
Yeah. Horizon. There you go. Having had a number of my associates email about it, one guy actually I've known for some time as part of the cleanup crew, telling me various things that were happening from that and the chemicals that were floating around. It definitely, it is a man-made disaster through an accident. So, yeah, there have been dead zones reported for several decades that I know of, and they're caused by different things, but more so now by us than by nature. Okay.
Interesting. All right. We'll continue going forward. I'm looking at Joe here.
And I'm just reading this, a note. The Mississippi Sound is what it's called.
Mississippi Sound. And that's not a band.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mississippi Sound.
All right.
Yeah, well, see, a lot of the stuff, the toxins and waste and junk that get into the Mississippi and then flow out into the sound, or into the delta that forms outside the exit point, will, of its own accord, form some toxic regions for life forms. Coupled with the horizon problem, it'll spread all the way from the Mississippi to the east over into the panhandle of Florida. Anyway,
Okay. All right.
There.
All right.
If that listener asks that question, if he'll just look up like dead zones in oceans are caused by, and I'm just doing that as we speak. There's a good discussion on it in the English version of the Wikipedia, saying it's been caused by low oxygen areas in oceans and large lakes, caused usually by excessive nutrient pollution from human activities, coupled with other factors that deplete the oxygen required to support most marine life in bottom and near bottom waters. Let's see here. They show these areas on a map in that Wikipedia, which appears to be certainly along from Texas all the way over to the southern western side of the Florida prominence there. There are a lot of dead zones in that area, and then all up the east coast of the United States. And then there are a bunch over near Norway and Russia on the western side there, and then a bunch over toward China and Japan. Is that China or is that Taiwan? What is that there? Yeah. China and Japan, and a couple off the coast of California. But the greatest dead zone areas that they mark on it is around the coastline of the Gulf of Mexico, and then from the Carolinas up into Maine, all through there, dead zones on our coast, which does speak heavily of pollution from human endeavors being flown into, draining into the sea.
Okay. All right. I've got a listener here, Ruby, okay, and she's from North Carolina, wanting to get an update. Quite a long question here, but with respect to chemtrails, I'm just trying to get to the core of the question here. Basically, Stan, have chemtrails in your observations? Have they? Are we seeing more chemtrails take place of late, or has it been about the same over the last few years? And if there is a difference, is there? What would you account? What would be the cause of the difference with respect to chemtrails?
Difficult question to answer because I've been thinking about this a lot. We get chemtrails over us. We've had days where we had crisscrosses like crazy, usually during the heat of the summer. And so it were some kind of a shield for solar energy coming down that was the opinion. About 3 weeks ago, I was out looking almost toward evening, and I saw a plane leaving a trail behind it. And I thought, that's a contrail, not a chemtrail, because the trail is disappearing. And I looked behind it, and there was this blank space in its path, and then there was a chemtrail hanging out, going further east for miles. And it's the same plane, but its chemtrail changed to a contrail. And then it changed to a chemtrail again further on as it traveled. So I'm saying, is it atmospheric conditions that produce chemtrails out of contrails? And there's no such thing. And then I realized I'd read a number of articles on what's in those exhaust trails, and it's not normal. So, okay, I thought, right, I don't know what caused that particular anomaly where a single plane makes a chemtrail, contrail, chemtrail, one path. But there is something in that. I think that it's a weather-based thing, and I don't know whether it's increasing now or whether because of cloud cover from the storms they're going to lay off of it over America or what. I just... Yeah. You have to have a crystal ball to figure that one out.
Yeah, and I get that. Okay. One thing I've noticed, and maybe this is just an artifact of the atmospheric conditions, what I've seen in the sky, look, I don't know if I'm going to say it's deliberate spraying as opposed to contrails, but what I've noticed, and maybe you can explain this to me, it almost the trails themselves appear to have an oily appearance. I don't even know if I can explain that properly. An oily, kind of like a sheen to them in the sky. Have you noticed that?
No. Well, no. I have seen some kind of rainbow-type glows around certain thin, high-altitude clouds that were formed possibly by chemtrails earlier in the day as they blew over us, but not all the time. And so I don't know how I would determine that they were oily looking.
Well, yeah, and that's my descriptive term. Look, I understand, for example, about rainbows and condensation, and the angle of degree.
Yeah, we've seen them look, blackish when the sun's in a certain position.
Yeah, almost like an inky, translucent inky, if that.
Like when you have gasoline or oil on the road and it rains and it leaves some kind of oily residue type thing.
Oh, okay.
We'll
go there.
I can't even understand what you're trying to...
I'm not articulating it well. I understand that. It's something. It just has a different appearance to me when you look at this certain, like the other morning.
Like the chemical compound has changed and it's become darker. Or
well, you know what? The other morning I was looking at two trails in the sky, if you will, and I don't know if it's because of the angle of my observation, but one of the trails left these I'm going to say kind of puffy, jettisoned-like puffs, if you will, in the sky. The other was more straight. It was fairly well defined. Well, the other one was. It looked like somebody was puffing on a pipe or a cigar, and every once in a while blowing out the smoke from that. Now, having said that, the difference between the two, the first one, the well-defined one, was merely white, if you will, or white, I suppose. Whereas the other one had a somewhat inky, shiny, or sheen to it. Boy, I should have taken a picture and showed it to you as opposed to trying to explain.
It looked like you had the white trail, but then you had kind of a dark shadow connected to it on one side?
No, not on one side. It would be interwoven throughout. It was almost like I mean, it was just when I looked at it, I took notice of it, and I thought I've just never seen that before, or if I have, I certainly haven't seen it defined to that degree or obvious to that degree. So I didn't know if that was just maybe I had too little sleep and too much coffee that morning. I don't know, but it was just a difference in appearance, a very obvious difference in appearance. It was almost like if I would have taken a photograph, if I had a camera with me and taken a photograph, I would have said, yeah, I mean, you would have been able to see it, I suspect. But it was an obvious difference between the two, and I didn't know. I'm going to stop now because I'm digging a hole here. Trying to explain
these things. I remember when I was a kid that we never saw contrails hang around. They disappear within, I don't know, 10 or 15 lengths of the aircraft behind it. They would re-evaporate into the air instead of being condensed moisture. They would just disappear as the plane moved. Never did I see them leaving all these crisscross things across the sky that got fatter and fatter as they cooled and descended and formed clouds. I just never saw that happen with contrails when I was a young man. I'm sure I would have noticed. We had clear blue skies, and you would have a contrail as the plane passed. That was it. It may be that they're using a different kind of formula in all these planes, but then I looked up and I say, well, why the heck did the one I was looking at start out with a contrail, break off and start off with a chemtrail, and left it behind it, and then there was a blank space, and then it was flying still in a straight line, and it was not leaving a chemtrail, but it had a contrail that was disappearing behind it, and then all of a sudden it started again with a chemtrail. I mean, unless it was changing altitude, was that it, that it caused it at different altitudes, rising or climbing, ascending or descending? I don't have an easy answer for that, Doug. It's just, I think it's abnormal, and I don't know whether it's due to fuel ratios and mixtures in modern jets as opposed to when I was younger or not, but I just never saw this when I was a kid.
Right. Okay. Well, I fully understand that. Okay. Yeah, and I've noticed obviously a distinct difference between what we're seeing today versus what I saw as a young man, very young man. So yeah, I mean, I understand that. I just, and of course I've watched, and just want to say this, folks, I've seen the video, what in the world it is spraying and such. I've seen the videos, so you don't have to say, hey, watch this video. I've seen the videos. But still, there are some current anomalies, at least in my view, to what we're seeing today, even to half a dozen years ago. So, what's it from? Atmospheric conditions changes, or changes in formulation of whatever they're spraying, or and so on. I mean, I don't know, but
well, yeah, you can probably go on the internet and look up contrail changes through history, or contrail photos through history, something like that, and see, if anyone else has got pictures, say, of the ones that, like when we were younger, did they have these things, say, in the 60s? I don't know.
Well, even some of the if you've, and I've made it a point to watch, for example, some of the for example, some of the sporting events from that were videoed back in the 1960s, outside events, whether it be golf or who knows, or interviews that took place outside. If you pay attention not to the subject of the video, but to the skies, either behind it or around it, you don't see what we're seeing today. I mean, do you? I don't think so. I mean, there's a distinct difference between, outside video footage from.
Well, I'm looking here. I told you to look up that thing. I just got something here, showing some World War II contrails of aircraft, and they look like chemtrails. From the Air Force of Pictorial History, 1945, from P-51s. I don't know, maybe we just didn't pay attention. Maybe there's more planes flying in the sky than when we were young or something. But I see here what looks like a chemtrail in 1944 over Germany on 30 November 1944, taken off the wing of one of the bombers. And then of the fighter escorts 1940 over Europe. It's certainly busy looking. And it does look like old photos for real.
Okay.
I don't know, guys. I mean, Art Bell started all this stuff back years ago when he nicknamed them chemtrails. I think we ought to look back and try to find some of the older photos of aircraft flying in those days, just to see, to prove what I've seen online.
Yeah.
Ask how long contrails last, or the internet's a great resource if we use it properly.
Well, sure. Yeah, it's amazing topics. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you or get you off completely off on that topic. Go ahead, sir.
Well, we'll look at it and see from a different angle here. I never thought to check the photos and see what happens, but the official contrail story is that they can last from seconds up to several hours, depending on atmospheric conditions, which is what I was kind of talking about the plane that I saw make what looked like a chemtrail, then nothing, then a contrail, then a chemtrail. It might be passing through different atmospheric conditions that cause the ice crystals to form, or the water vapor to condense into a cloud or something and then be reabsorbed. It's hard to know.
Okay.
Well, we've kept.
I've taken a lot of flack. I've taken a lot of flack talking about it and saying that they exist, but I do know that Dr. Teller had proposed injecting this stuff into aircraft fuels to protect the surface of the Earth from holes in the ozone layer and from the sun, etc. Bearing down on the land below. But I don't know.
Well,
it's one of those things that we can't really prove right now.
Interesting, though. Yeah. Go ahead, Joe. Didn't mean that.
No, I was just going to say we've kept you over the hour, and
of course, we always do. That's we take.
Hey, what else is new?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, fantastic. Well, a lot of information.
Hey, I love it when you guys. Yeah, go on.
No, it's just a lot of information. I like the way that you approach things in terms of the scientific aspects of things. And one of the great finds, I think, that you'll be accredited for is the anomalous sea surface temperatures, really focusing in on that and how that affects the weather. To me, I think just thinking about this, I mean, and of course the all the effects from that, very interesting, and it would seem to me that somebody doesn't want, or it's pretty coincidental, but somebody doesn't want this study too hard based on the taking down or making it very difficult to find or difficult to keep up the imagery on this. But
Well, let me put one final thought on this chemtrail or contrail situation. It might well be that pollution in the atmosphere produces lingering contrails. If you look at the pictures that I was talking about over Europe and Germany during World War II, there was a lot of gunfire and fires. There's a lot of pollution over the area. Bombing caused it and that kind of stuff, which may have caused the contrails to linger much longer after combining with chemicals, the pollutants that are in the air that you couldn't see. It's interesting to note that the temperature change on the planet has, since 1900, has gone up, maybe 0.7 of a degree C on a global average, which is big in those kind of terms. And around the end of World War II, greenhouse gases started to increase astronomically. I mean, the amount of them in our atmosphere was, I'd say it's probably 3 times greater than what it was then now. And during that time, maybe these pollutants, these greenhouse gases, caused the atmosphere to preserve a normal contrail much longer because of the interaction with the gases and the exhaust gases of the jets. I don't know. I just, there's a lot of studies made on it, and I try to balance the argument, and it does seem like the atmospheric conditions and pollutants could cause these things to linger, even if there's no particle being emitted out of the exhaust, like metallic particles to shield the earth from the sun, that kind of stuff that Teller was talking about. Even if it's just normal fuel byproducts, they can combine with industrial or other pollutants that are in the air in greater density as we have increased populations over these areas. So it's something that needs study.
Yeah, that does make sense. I want to slip this question in here before you leave, because Chuck from Springfield listening live wants to know, since you're, and I'm paraphrasing here the email, since you're talking about chemtrails, contrails, and such, and you talked about the weather, wouldn't it be, his question is this, wouldn't it be possible to seed or to do something from an aerial perspective to change the weather, for example, to cause rain in the drought areas, or conversely, to somehow disrupt the storms like over Houston and Austin? That sounds like a logical question to me.
I'm sure there probably are a number of methods that could be used if the expense could be justified. And with a failing economy like we've got, I wouldn't hold my breath. There are electrical means. There are chemical salting means with silver compounds. I'm sure they could even use probably like microwave heating in certain areas to change the outcome of the storm a little bit over certain parts of cities. But when you try to do this over a statewide area, something like that, it does involve a lot of planes, a lot of chemistry, a lot of electrics, and I'm not sure that we know that much about weather to be that accurate with what we do and not create a worse effect downstream.
Interesting. So it comes down to the Benjamins. It's all about the Benjamins.
I think so.
Yeah. All right.
Excellent.
I mean, NASA's developed a number of things over the years to protect their rockets from lightning strikes that can affect tornadoes and tornado clouds and cause them not to produce tornadoes. But to use that technology would take a full-time team, big team, in various places with, in some cases, small rocket launchers and tethered cables and all kinds of stuff. And it gets into jurisdictional problems with states and private versus property and stuff. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Sadly, but it is. Of course, if we had a one-world government, a dictator, he could say whatever he wanted to, and we'd have to do it, you see.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Hey, when you guys called me up to get on the show on Tuesday, the first thing I hear is when I pick up the phone, it says, You have a call coming from 16,612,449,000. You know, it's your phone number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
there you go. Yeah, that's our number, and we're well, as long as it doesn't say you got a call from 666 or whatever. But anyway.
wow. Yes.
Anyway.
All right, guys. That's
God
it
bless
for the
you,
week.
my friend. Thank you, buddy.
You've been great, Stan. Thank you. You and Holly, take care.
Will do. See you, boys.
All right.
Bye. That was Stan Deyo from StanDeyo.com, our regular Tuesday guest in that second hour. Always has some tremendous insight, and love the audience questions, as they have so much more.
A lot of people, yeah.
Just talk about a roundabout. You know, it's not just one subject or focused on one aspect. We have listener questions that run the gamut from side to side. So.
That's right.
We do thank you guys for sending in your questions, and Stan always does a great job at answering each and every one of them.
Provides a good forum for the audience interaction with Stan Deyo. It's great. So, one-on-one.
With that, we're going to go to our break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Tuesday, May. We have about 30 minutes left of this Tuesday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. And we're going to hit some news that we didn't get into in the first hour. We did talk about the Marine who was court-martialed and punished for refusing to remove a Bible verse from her computer. But there's some other very important, interesting information that we need to hit on in this last 30 minutes. I wanted to start here today. Cleveland and the U.S. Justice Department announced police settlement. Interestingly enough, because we've been talking about Cleveland and we see the unrest that's been happening with the police in different counties. And, well, here we go. Cleveland agreed to sweeping changes in how its police officers use force, treat the community, and deal with the mentally ill under a settlement around Tuesday with the federal government that will put the 1,500-member department under an independent monitor. The settlement was made public 3 days after a white Cleveland patrolman was acquitted of manslaughter for his role in a 137-shot barrage of police gunfire that left 2 unarmed black suspects dead in a car in 2012. 137 bullets, my goodness. Frank Jackson said the ambitious plan that was worked out over 5 months of negotiations with the U.S. Justice Department will be expensive and will take years to put into place, but he said he sees it as a chance to set an example for other cities. The proposed reforms could come amid tensions around the U.S. over a string of cases in which blacks have died at the hands of police. As we move forward, it is my strong belief that as other cities across the country address and look at their police issues in their communities, they will be able to say, let's look at Cleveland because Cleveland has done it right, Jackson said. I'm not going to continue to read the rest of the article, but one thing that is interesting here is the intersection or the insertion of the Justice Department into another local police municipality. And we know many local police municipalities have their problems, their issues, their racisms, their abuses of power and other abuses, and that no police force is perfect. But we know that the majority of police are good people, I would hope, and we know many police that are good people. But the Justice Department, coming in, making the city strike a deal with some independent monitor, imposing themselves on the city, is this the start of a neutered police force like we're seeing reports out of Baltimore? Murder is up 100% from last month. And we had a caller call in, I believe it was last night, to talk about these statistics in Baltimore, how there were, I think, 26 shot, 12 dead over the weekend in Baltimore. And he said that he made the point, well, it wasn't making news. And shouldn't it make news? And we made the point about Chicago. Well, there was 12 dead and 43 wounded in shootings over Chicago over the weekend. So that did trump Baltimore's shootings. But yes, these communities are becoming more, as the racial lines and tensions are pushed, as the socioeconomic tensions are pushed, as unemployment continues to rise, as poverty continues to rise, as prices continues to rise, amid all this, yes, tensions are going to increase between people. You already have the problem of drugs and gangs and an anti-police sentiment for the most part in inner city communities. But the state of the economy, the prices of food, the availability of jobs and of income is not increasing, yet the increase of the prices of everything else are. And especially for people who are considered to be, very poor, low to poverty to very poor, they're not seeing any reprieve. So you're going to have to expect violence and bad things to happen before things get better. Because if there's not solutions being created, only more problems are going to be created. But again, we have the Justice Department inserting themselves into the Cleveland Police Department and reaching a settlement where the DOJ has implemented a independent monitor into the 1,500-member police department to oversee what their actions are. And I don't say that an independent arbitrator or monitor is a bad idea for a police force. Too often do we see police get away with crimes that are violent and seem to have intent behind them and, get discharged with pay. Those instances need to change. SWAT teaming the wrong house and ransacking it and having no consequences. Those days do need to change. At the same time, do we need the federal government involving themselves in the local police departments to the point where they are dictating policy and implementing overseers? I think that's an important question we need to get into.
Entertain.
And unless you want to comment on that.
No, I have something else here that I think really needs to be. Are we
clear?
Go ahead. All right, folks. You're not going to hear much about this story. You might have heard a blip. I think ABC News reported on this. The IRS. Okay.
That's what I was going to talk about next.
Really?
The IRS hit by cyber attack?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now this, folks, please pay attention to this, because this could affect you. And this answers a question, although on a personal level, and I'll just share this much, okay? In order to obtain the commercial mortgage for the studio, and okay, we had to go through a long process and involved IRS transcripts. Well, guess what? IRS says thieves stole tax info from 100,000 taxpayers. Now, okay.
Any chance they stole our tax info to pay our taxes for us?
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. Okay, it's not 100,000, and I got an independent, shall I say, assertion claim. I can't say verification, but the individual that had sent me this information, who I had worked with or corresponded with, said that it is 10 times that. Whether or not we'll hear the truth on this remains to be seen. But
look at the numbers. It says in these instances of criminals turning around and using the information that they stole to file fraudulent returns, stealing potentially close to, if not more than, $50 million from the government.
Right. Well, actually from taxpayers, but they say from the government. But,
right.
Okay, folks, if you're one of many, and I learned this, I never knew this existed, but you can sign on, use a computer, sign on, if you're getting a refund, for example, from the IRS, and many people do this. Where's my refund? Well, in order to circumvent, if you will, that process, or to kind of like gain additional knowledge, a couple of years ago, the taxpayers use the transcript interface, which is, okay, I'm not going to take time explaining it. You can research it on your own, but the bottom line is this. The IRS has given us the ability over the last 3 years, I think 3 years ago or 2 years ago, they started this, where you can get your transcripts, IRS transcripts, directly from the IRS website, okay? And you've got to clear a number of security questions. and then it takes you to a screen, and there's 4 different types of transcripts, tax transcripts, your return transcripts, your account transcripts, and so on and so forth. Okay, you're not going to hear this on the news. All right. So you click on the appropriate year, you can download your transcripts. Now, these are used to secure mortgages or, in some cases, for employment purposes. But the bottom line is there's a lot of information on these transcripts. It would be like me handing you my entire tax return. Okay? Now, the news is this was hacked between February and mid-May. This
starting in February.
Okay,
just caught last week.
Right, and I can say that well, it's interesting because I received some correspondence from the IRS that just threw me for a loop here because it referenced a filing I never made, meaning an amended filing. Okay, now things are starting to make sense. I'm wondering if I'm one of the people that have been hacked, and of course, my inquiry to the IRS about this has yet to be satisfactorily explained. But bottom line here is this: the Get Transcript service has been hacked, and if you're dealing with this, okay, you'll know. If it affects you, you're going to know. Because you know what I'm talking about. If you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, chances are you're not directly affected by this. But if you're looking for your IRS transcript either for a tax return purpose or some other reason, you've got some. We better pay attention to this. That's all I wanted to say about this. But the hack is bigger. The information leak is greater than we are being told, and this can be used, exploited, and people. In other words, this could be used by the globalists to say, "This is why we need
a digital currency."
There you go, and
paperless, yeah.
And we all need to be through biometrics. To be identifiable through biometrics. Otherwise, this will continue to keep happening. And that's the larger picture, and that's the push toward that's the agenda here. But so I don't want you to be frightened or worried, but just be aware that if you use the transcript interface, it's possible that, and many do for a lot of reasons, and I think some are ridiculous at face, to try to decode the numbers on where's my refund.
Where's my refund?
Yeah,
Where's my check to the IRS?
But anyway, so just keep it in mind, Joe. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, a few interesting pieces here. One we talked about yesterday, but I want to start here. Hillary Clinton, there's a new report that her State Department approved weapons deals came with Clinton Foundation donor cash.
It's on our website, HagmannandHagmann.com. The excerpt from the Investors Business Times.
Okay, we'll go to HagmannandHagmann.com and read up on that article. I want to come back to that if we have time, but there's a few other pieces of news that I've found just as important, if not more important, and I brought that up because I know how much you have been on top of this, Ed. But we have ISIS here, and here's the article I'm looking for. One, Hezbollah has called ISIS an existential threat, and then he says we face a threat unparalleled in history. The leader of Hezbollah said. Well, in
wait a second. This is Hezbollah calling ISIS a threat,
an existential threat.
Wow.
Okay. And now we have an article yesterday that has taken, went kind of viral today. U.S. Intel, Obama coalition supported ISIS in Syria. A newly released intelligence report from the Pentagon shows that the U.S. government knew that supporting jihadists in the fight against Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad would produce fundamental Islamic State in eastern Syria, and that Obama-supported anti-ISIS coalition knowingly backed ISIS and other Islamic terrorists precisely for that purpose.
There you go.
Heavily redacted Department of Defense report obtained by Judicial Watch via a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit shows once again that, contrary to the false narrative peddled by the establishment press, the rise of the savage terror group known as ISIS was actually deliberate policy. Now the fruits of that plot are becoming clearer as the body count continues to skyrocket. In a 2012 Defense Intelligence Agency report, it is very blunt about the objectives. The West, Gulf countries, the Islamic regimes ruling Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, etc., and Turkey support the Syrian opposition. It explains, adding that the New American report at the time, Al-Qaeda supported the Syrian uprising from the beginning as well. There's a possibility establishing declared or undeclared Salafist?
Yeah, Salaf.
Principally in eastern Syria, and this is exactly what the supporting powers to the opposition want in order to isolate the Syrian regime. Of course, that is also exactly what happened when ISIS declared the establishment of its caliphate in eastern Syria.
This is all about Syria. We told you this right at Benghazi. The objective has always been and continues to be Syria. The government of the United States, the Western intelligence, the CIA and other Western intelligence agencies, including Mossad and MI6 and the CIA, all of these created, funded, formulated ISIS. This is an art. I mean, this is a deliberate. And you know why? Do you know why? I mean, in addition to the geopolitical aspect of it, it goes back to the first hour. This is a war against Christianity. Who are the primary victims of ISIS, other than, obviously,
the displaced citizens of Syria and Iraq, but mostly Christians. And non-Islamists, non-converters.
That's right.
And those people who are converting are not Christians, for the most part, I would say, or never were.
But please understand the significance of ISIS as the acronym. Do not use ISIL. Okay, it's ISIS for a lot of reasons. ISIL is it kind of takes. The short answer is ISIL kind of takes Israel out of the picture. However, ISIS, the acronym, the mythological gods Horus and Osiris and Isis. But what's happening here is what the Germans did by creating the
SS,
the group against the Jews. Okay. The globalists are using ISIS to go against the Christians.
Yeah, and this report further states that this is a Western establishment-backed rebellion against the Syrian regime. And there were other parts of the report that offered proof that the rise of ISIS was due largely to the foreign policy of the Obama administration and its allies, not the result of an accident or stupidity, but of deliberate planning. However, Vice President Joe Biden and Joint Chief of Staff Chairman General Martin Dempsey had already let the cat out of the bag partially. Speaking at Harvard last year, Biden directly contradicted the Obama administration propaganda about arming moderate rebels in Syria. The fact is, the ability to identify a moderate middle in Syria there was no moderate middle, he explained, adding that the Obama's anti-ISIS coalition had armed, trained, and funded Al-Qaeda and ISIS to wage war on Assad.
That's thank you. There you have it. We have always said, World War III will start in Syria, and people, it's going to start in Ukraine. Well, when history looks back at the events, you will see what Obama, the renegade in chief, and his minions, Muslim Brotherhood perverts in the White House, what he did, and of course Hillary Rodham Clinton, what she has done through her works to create ISIS. And you know what really, again, it makes me mad to look at these intellectual talking head pundits, whether they're on Fox News or MSNBC or whatever, station and whatever. They don't address, man, I got to calm down here. ISIS was created to eradicate Christianity, but it was used as a tool and is being used as a tool to destabilize Syria, and of course this is a proxy war against Russia. And the sectarian violence happens to be what I would term collateral damage. It is not what these talking head holier than thou, I know more than you do, look down at my nose upon you pundits are talking about on these news shows, saying, well, it's it's sectarian violence, it's Sunni versus Shia, it's been happening for so many since the 7th century, so on and so forth. No, this is a deliberate, orchestrated attack worldwide on a globalist level, hatched in the bowels of the basements of the Saudi mansions, and the money that was built by American oil money and the petrodollar. This is what this is all about. This is bigger than anything people can imagine, and those people who refuse to see it for what it is are intellectually bankrupt or disingenuous or both. And I'll tell you something, it's evil to its core. And ISIS, as far as we have seen, Joe and I have researched this, and even to the having or ourselves or cause to have surveillance and investigation done here in the United States, I can tell you right now there are components of ISIS that have been ushered into the United States by this government for the same purpose that's taking place in the Middle East, and that is to war against Christians, to change the geopolitical aspect of the United States. It's not just about the influx of illegal immigrants here to gain democratic voters. That's shallow thinking. No, it's multi-level chess, and it's all about the domination, the globalist domination. Sorry, but I mean, this is bigger than what people can.
Well said.
This is much bigger than what anybody has even uttered on any talk show anywhere. And people better understand what's happening, because they will be cutting your heads off. And if that sounds really like hype,
it actually sounds very prophetic.
I'm going to tell you right now.
Those beheaded for the testimony and the faith and word of Christ.
Yes, it will be happening. And of course, a head lopped off here or there, like the head lopped off in the studio of Bridges Television in Orchard Park, New York, by that insane SOB who we have had direct dealings with, who's in jail now for cutting his wife's head off and using it as a soccer ball inside the studio of Bridges TV. Okay, expect more, but here's the thing: expect more, or expect beheadings of Christians here. Expect attacks against Christians and Jews as well. And there's already attacks being made by Muslims against Christians and Jews in the United States, especially in the 5 boroughs of New York City, but it's not being reported. And you know why it's not being reported? Because you know why it's not being reported. But expect this to rise dramatically. And if you think that's hype, then go stick your head back up your orifice.
All right. And in closing, the Supreme Court to soon rule on 13 important cases. We know what one of them are, but we're going to go through some of these here. The Supreme Court is heading into the final month of its annual term. In a potentially historic ruling, the court will decide whether same-sex couples have a right to marry nationwide, culminating a 2-decade legal battle and political fight for marriage equality. After much of anticipated decision on whether the Obama administration may continue to subsidize health insurance for low and middle income people who buy coverage in the 36 states that failed to establish an official insurance exchange of their own and instead used the federally run version. If the court rules against the Obama administration, about 8.6 million people could lose their subsidies under the Affordable Health Care Act. Between now and late June, the court will hand down more than 24 decisions on matters such as politics, civil rights, free speech, air pollution. Several of these cases have been pending for months, suggesting the justices have been sharply split. Here are the major cases due for the coming weeks. 1. Marriage and gay rights. The court has said the right to marry is a basic liberty protected by the Constitution. Same-sex couples, some of whom are raising children, say that as a member of equal rights, states may not deny them marriage licenses. In their defense of laws banning gay marriage in their states of Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and Tennessee, say the decision should be left to them and their voters. Health insurance tax subsidies, we just covered. 3rd, passports and foreign policy. A minor case involving a passport of a 12-year-old American boy born in Jerusalem raises a major question. Does Congress or the President have the final word on foreign policy? In Congress, in 2002, they passed a law giving U.S. parents a right to have Israel listed as a birthplace for a child born in Jerusalem. But George W. Bush and Obama refused to abide by it, noting that both Israelites and Palestinians claim the city as their capital. They say the law interferes with the president's exclusive authority to recognize foreign states.
Well, let me just interject something here. If this country had any testosterone, had any real leaders, we would take our embassy and we would move it from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. We would recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and be done with it. But we don't have any leaders, and I understand the geopolitical ramifications by doing so. But you know what?
Israel did take the Jerusalem back in the 6-Day War.
Well,
regardless of the historical claim,
it'd be like,
it's theirs now.
Okay, it'd be like my neighbor taking my
trying to come take over your house and you defeat him. And
let's say my neighbor broke into my house and took my my special heirloom vase my grandmother gave me, okay, or my grandfather gave me, okay, and put it in their house, and me going over taking it back. Wait a second, who stole what? Did I steal it? Well, I suppose technically maybe I did, but it was mine to begin with.
Maybe you stole it from your grandma.
No. It was given to me by covenant. But see, people don't. Again,
but even regardless of that, just from after Israel was reestablished as a nation from the 6-Day War, that territory was taken back by Israel.
Well, it's correct. Right. It was always theirs anyway.
Well,
but yes, okay. Yes. I mean, the short answer is yes.
I mean, there's many ways that this could be argued, but yeah, we obviously know what the right answer is, and biblically speaking, more assuredly than any political or secular commentator would care to get into. Another important issue here, the Supreme Court is ruling on this Facebook threats and free speech. It is illegal to transmit any threat over the phone or the internet, but it's unclear what the government must prove to win a conviction. Anthony Ellenis was sent to prison after he boasted on Facebook how he could kill his ex-wife, hide her body, and slit her throat, an FBI agent who was on the case said. Now he says he was just ranting, and prosecutors did not prove he intended to threaten anyone. Ellenis versus U.S. has been pending since early December, so the Supreme Court is going to rule on or make it clear exactly what intent is needed to prove, or what threats and free speech, what's the difference there? Head scarves and religious liberty. A case of a 17-year-old Muslim girl who wore a black headscarf and was turned down for a sales job at Abercrombie & Fitch store is on the court to clarify the rules of religion in the workplace.
Stop. This has nothing to do with religion.
No, I understand.
There's
a religion component to this.
But wait a second.
Because
that's culture. That's cultural. That's not religious.
You're right. But see, this is going to be used against Christians, just like we saw with the Marine and her Bible verse on her desk. This is going to be used, as you said. It's a cultural issue that's going to be turned around to work against Christianity and the freedom of religion.
Well, that's a very good point. Yes, it is. And the target here is Christians. It's not Muslims. And as far as the headscarves, the hijab, the stuff that covers your face, okay, I don't care, whatever it's called, except for your eyes. That has nothing to do with Islam. That has nothing to do with Islam. It's all culture. It's the culture. It's not the religion. And they're using our democratic laws to change to change this country. And by the grace of God, we will not allow this. And as Greg Jackson said, and I just want to reiterate this, even though this is not the right section to say this, but you know what? A law that goes against God's law is no law at all, and we will not obey those laws, at least not here at the Hagmann Hagmann Report. So do with us what you must, but expect a hell of a pushback.
And there's a few more, just one more I want to cover. Motel registers and police searches. The court will decide whether Los Angeles may require motel owners to keep a guest registry that is always available for immediate inspection by the police. The U.S. Ninth Circuit Court said the city's ordinance violated the Fourth Amendment and its ban on unreasonable searches. The city of Los Angeles versus Patel. I wanted to say, and the reason that was important is because I did not know this until recently, but all Motel 6s and some other hotels automatically generate a list of their guests and send those to police, which are cross-referenced for warrant checks.
Yeah, we'll keep the light on for you.
Yeah. We'll keep the light on for you and the handcuffs ready if you are wanted. But no, that startled me to see that.
Hey, look at this. It's a fax coming in. What is it? Oh, okay.
Well, we used to travel a lot and I would get speeding tickets here and there, and if you didn't pay one, you get a bench warrant issued, and next thing you know, you're staying at a hotel for work, and all of a sudden the police come pick you up.
That did happen to a close family member of mine. Actually, an outstanding warrant or ticket, unpaid ticket. Listen to this, unpaid ticket. Okay, it was for I think 6 over the speed limit. One morning, Saturday morning, knock on the door, 2 sheriffs, handcuffs in the back of the car, in jail, and the family member said, "Why? You could have just called me and I would have cleared it up." And the deputy sheriff said, "It was a slow day."
That's terrible. We want to thank you guys for hanging in there with us tonight. And anybody who joined us late, Stan Deyo was our guest in the second hour. And he was ramped up, did a great job, answered a lot of questions.
Now I'm ramped up.
Him and Holly for their time they spend with us here on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We will be back here live tomorrow. Don't forget, this week, my dad and Steve Quayle will be on John B. Wells Thursday. Steve and John Price will be on our show Thursday. We will be with Sheila Zielinski on Friday. And there was one more.
I'll be on Dave Hodges Sunday.
Dave Hodges on Sunday. So, busy week. And we look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Until then, stay safe, God bless, and have a great night.